Hey all, here OS Reviews. This is a Redux, aka revisited review of the PopuPiano. It's a smart, compact electronic piano that we took a look at a few months back, but in this video we're checking out a few additional accessories have since become available for this product. As a quick recap, this company, Popu Music, specializes in adding some smart functionality to various instruments, including their Popu smart ukuleles that came out a few years back that has a fretboard with LEDs embedded on it, teaching you how to place your fingers and more quickly mastering the instrument. The PopuPiano, as the name implies, is an electronic piano that has different keys lighting up corresponding to the notes that you're supposed to press on as you're taking the lessons and also playing along with music that they have with their companion app. That being said, one of the slight cons that we mentioned during our original review is that for the sake of compactness, it's not going to be as large or expansive as a full-size piano. In fact, there are 17 kind of traditional white keys as well as 12 of these black keys on top. And that is compared to a regular full-size piano having 52 white keys and 36 black keys, aka 88 keys total. And so, similar to some of those Casio compact electronic pianos, it's more of a toy or novelty gadget, since it's less than half of the keys you have on a full-sized piano. And so if you are trying to play back more complex pieces that changes between different octaves, you have to do a lot more shifting using the software in order to simulate a higher versus lower octave, as you can tell there, and sometimes it can still feel a little bit like a cramped experience depending on the pieces that you're playing. And so, in response to that, Popu Music have come out with essentially a module that can extend on the PopuPiano. What is interesting though is that this modular accessory is still technically 3 white keys less compared to the main module. As you can tell, they're side by side, but the width of the keys are going to be exactly the same build quality as well. And again, it uses the charging contacts that are otherwise on the main section that you can then connect together with this larger extension and now have a much larger surface to play with that feels more intuitive, getting you closer to an almost full-size keyboard. Still a little bit less than that, but at least now you can play back pieces without having to shift left and right quite as often. But in this Redux, aka Ultimate Roundup, the other new accessory I wanted to mention is also a small MIDI-powered speaker that connects to the keyboard directly. This is actually addressing another slight quirk, that is the original PopuPiano doesn't have a built-in speaker of its own. So it connects via Bluetooth to an external speaker, or of course you can use your phone speaker when you're paired with the app. But this allows you to just blast out a little bit more sound using an official speaker set, and this particular one is a little bit unique as well because it has a few more I/O, including one that supports now a optional pedal. So of course, unlike a full-sized piano, the actual PopuPiano itself doesn't have one of those feet pedals to sustain notes and kind of drag it out, making it a little bit more smooth, and that is an effect that you can now simulate using the optional pedal that can be plugged into the speaker accessory. And so coming over to the keyboard accessory first, again, it's presented in the same hardshell case, which is pretty fancy looking, protects it well. It's actually thick enough that it can accommodate both of these pieces inside when you're traveling or on the go, which is pretty convenient. So for example, opening it up, I can pop the keyboard accessory onto the bottom, as you can tell, and the top piece for the main compartment can still fit in. That being said, of course, you can't put the speaker and the pedal into this case. It only fits the actual keyboard component. Now, the pogo contacts are coming out here from the right edge of the accessory here, so it only snaps in this one position. There is no second adapter slot, for example, on the other side of the main component, which perhaps would have been an interesting idea to consider maybe in a future revision, so that you can snap in both this extra keyboard section in addition to the other little accessory that came bundled with the original PopuPiano, which is designed more for sound mixing. So by tapping on it, you're able to activate synthetic sounds like drum beats, as well as loops, things like that. But of course, now that you have this keyboard side attached onto the pogo contacts, you can no longer plug in both of these accessories at the same time. You have to kind of pick between one or the other, which is why if they have a second port on the other end, if you can snap in all 3 pieces, that would have been great. But overall, it is what it is. You still have some soft touch rubber feet on the very back though that prevents it from sliding around onto a surface or a desk. As for the dedicated speaker, aka MIDI sounds speaker, it includes 10 different timbres built on it. Aside from the actual speaker itself, there's just a quick user guide and also a Type-C cable there for charging. Pretty standard stuff. Now here is what the speaker here looks like. There is another kind of Popu Music logo on the side and some soft touch rubber feet. Overall, it looks like it's part of the same kind of family or collection. On the very top here, there's a kind of oversized brass key that you can tap on for power, hold on it for a few seconds for pairing, as well as volume controls and also the 10 different sound effects built into the speaker itself. It has a pretty reassuring heft, although the top is constructed out of a soft touch texture, which is pretty grippy. The speaker grill section is constructed out of a aluminum alloy shell. You kind of make out the stereo drivers here as well as the passive radiator in the middle for added bass. This particular section here though is just for decoration, doesn't actually press down. And otherwise we have on the very rear, the I/O, including the sustain, aka the pedal accessory, plugs in there, auxiliary as well as the Type-C port. And last but not least, the electronic pedal is an interesting one because looking at the packaging, it looks like this piece was perhaps off the shelf as opposed to being designed entirely from PopuPiano themselves, since it doesn't really have their logo on it directly. It just says DP10, but it's apparently compatible with all electronic keyboards and digital pianos. The pedal part is constructed out of metal, allowing you to, again, add just a little bit more of that sustained effect to your notes. And aside from the auxiliary input, or of course using it in the Bluetooth mode, you can also use it in the USB Type-C wired mode as well, so using the Type-C to Type-C cable that comes included if you prefer. In fact, it's recognized by the, again, keyboard here. Whenever you tap on power, it's going to change into that mode. You see the lighting effect here also shift accordingly. We are now connected, and let's try playing back some notes. Turning up the volume here on the speaker. And you can hear it is working accordingly. This is the loudest volume output from the unit. So still not going to be the loudest thing in the world, but definitely better than using your phone, I would say. We've also got the pedal connected, and you can hear the difference if I tap on this key. The overall effect will be kind of sustained for the notes that I'm pressing on. So you can kind of use this like on a regular piano, giving you just a bit more control. And just like on the main PopuPiano section, a reminder that all these keys are pressure sensitive. So just like on a real piano, depending on how hard you're pressing down, you do hear that difference in dynamics and volume as well. So it does feel pretty convincing as you're using it. All the textures of the keys, again, have this matte finish to them, so it's not too slick either. So here's kind of a quick demo now that we have more keys. And even though we have a much more spacious layout, you can still access the shift controls. So the light here indicates we've reached the end of this particular side, but we can now shift it to the middle, for example, kind of going into a lower octave range if preferred. And now all the notes should also sound a little bit lower as we are hitting on the key, as you can hear there. So still expanding on the kind of octaves that you can reach just by pressing on the left and right keys until you've hit the very end. A lot more comfortable to use. And let's also press on the music key here on the speaker, and that just adds kind of a synth effect to the sounds that are coming out from the piano. So now it becomes a lot more funky. This one here, church piano feel there, a little bit more air, and then once more, almost like a guitar or a string instrument. Once more like a bass, slightly deeper notes there. Once more. Also kind of a fun effect you can play with. And this one here is definitely kind of very electronic, process sounding. And then once more. And then once again just turns it entirely into rhythms, snares, and drums. So it loses all of the kind of melodic notes, but you do have just a lot more effects to play around with, again reacting to how hard you're pressing down accordingly. And then once more, kind of returns it into the normal piano mode. So those are all the defaults. And even without connecting to the companion app, you are able to change some of the preset animations for the LED lights just by tapping on the left and right keys on the top here together. So if we tap once, this will now go into a reactive mode where if you tap on it, it will ripple outwards. It's also quite similar to what mechanical keyboards, RGB keyboards provide, but still quite fun. Perhaps not quite as useful if you are actually playing in a darker environment, since it's a little bit harder to see the keys until you tap on something, but it can still be fun as a showcase, maybe a conversation starter mode if you have friends over. Tapping on it again will do the same reactive mode, but now it will only be in the white color, as you can tell. Once more, it will remain always on, but only in white instead of the crazy RGB shades, a little bit more clean and classic looking, before it will then cycle back into the rainbow RGB that we saw there from before. Now moving into the companion app, this Poppy Music app, by the way, is also the same one used for their Populele Smart Ukulele and their Smart Guitar products as well. So it's consolidated for all their various offerings. The largest tile here, corresponding to games and courses, will take you through the basics of how to master this instrument. It usually starts with a video tutorial that can take a few seconds to buffer, but afterwards it will start up and you'll see the corresponding lights there shine as well on the piano, so you know how to follow along with the tutorial guide. After a few seconds, it will typically pause and then tell you to press on the corresponding key to practice and get to your turn. So here we have a quick example of Do, Re, Mi, and we can tap on the second key and then moving on to the third one in the sequence. So here's a quick demo of what happens afterwards. You usually have to practice what you just learned using a song that then goes through those same notes or chords, now with the rhythm. So similar to Guitar Hero, you have to kind of align your playing with the kind of notes that are virtually appearing on the display to then get you a score of how well you're doing in terms of precision and rhythm that will show up there at the end. As long as you are passing, for example, getting higher than 80% accuracy, you'll be able to proceed onto the next lesson in the course. You can then move on to some more advanced courses that will teach you about also hand posture. A good way to think of it is you should be thinking of holding kind of an invisible ball in your hand as you're playing along. And note that all of the videos, of course, you can revisit at any time in the future if you want to practice it once again. Other tiles here include one called AIGC. It's really interesting. So it claims that it's able to generate songs using AI. So for example, you can select on a genre that you'd like, whether it's R&B, Chinese, pop, rock. So let's say I wanted to just select a few random notes here. I can then tap on generate a song and wait for the AI there to create something similar to how on ChatGPT, Bard, as well as even Bing, you're able to ask the AI to write you a poem. What's happening behind the scenes though is it's trained on vast amounts of data from existing music, and that may borrow certain elements from other songs and kind of mix and match it together to create something new, so to speak, from the AI's perspective. Now, other things that you can access here include free play, so this will just change into a UI that mirrors what your piano here is seeing. For example, now just beginning to play, you'll see the visualization occur as I'm playing here on the keyboard. And we can also shift, again, the octave higher or lower just by tapping on the left and right keys there once. So now the same notes will sound just one octave higher. Tapping on it again, it will now move towards the top there of its range. And you'll see that it's basically reached the maximum now of its range. The color there will turn red, as you can tell. A little bit more piercing there. And similarly, we're able to now shift also backwards, play back lower octave notes, as you can tell, until we hit also the lowest section that it's capable of reproducing. Otherwise, you can change the sound of the piano into something like strings. Final tab over here also allows you to change into even ukulele as well as harp. A pretty fun nod to their Populele as the origin for this brand in terms of their instruments. Even under piano, by the way, the classic one can also be changed to more of an electronic piano sound. Even one here called jazz piano, which is still giving us a piano sound, but maybe one that is just a little bit more weathered sounding. Now, other icons that we have available include a record function. So if you're free playing a song that you've practiced, you can record it onto your phone's memory. You can also start a metronome, helping you play around with a consistent rhythm. You'll hear that beat kind of like the ticking of a clock, and you can change the speed, of course. You can also light up different keys depending on chords that you're playing back as well. For example, E3 will be using these particular keys, and you'll see them light up here accordingly on the keyboard. So pretty neat. And you can also tap on the final icon here under lighting to also customize what individual keys will be in terms of their colors. Similarly, some of the common chords and genres can also be selected to light up those corresponding keys that are often used in that style of music. For example, here's the blues scale, and you'll see the color here also shine blue if we tap on those keys. So that is blues. This one here is the Chinese scale. It will now turn orange. This one here is the Japanese scale. Now it's turning kind of a violet shade. And so on and so forth. It's actually quite fun, and that can give you a little bit of assistance if you're trying to create perhaps a new song in that particular style. You can reference those as the common lit up notes. And last but not least, perhaps the most fun tile is Pop Hits. This will allow you to practice your favorite songs by different artists and genres. I will say that the roster of available music under Pop Hits, it's growing, but it still has a little bit more room to further expand, I would say. Some of the more popular titles include songs from Taylor Swift, from Adele, Maroon 5, Bruno Mars, but more obscure titles and artists that might not be perhaps at the top of their genre are going to be a little harder to come across under their current collection. But of course, once you get good enough at playing this, you can arguably tackle songs on your own, and this just gets the basics done. Further down below, you do find some more global music, I would say, so songs from foreign countries, including Japan, as well as China, so on and so forth, can also be referenced down below. You also see a final tab here that sorts some of that music by easy, medium, and hard, so this gives you an idea of which titles might be requiring fewer chords to play, at least in their version on the PopuPiano, versus harder ones might be a little bit more complex. Now here's a quick demo. If we tap on a song, you'll see the specific ranking from other global players, as well as you can access a practice and a demonstration mode. So the demonstration will be playing back basically a video of someone else playing the song, so you can hear the melody for the first time, and more importantly, the keys also light up corresponding to the rhythm that you'll be eventually playing. You can also go into a practice mode, and the difference compared to the regular play mode is unless you've pressed on the correct key, it will not proceed onto the next note. So it slows things down to a comfortable pace for you to actually learn the notes for the first time, and then it links everything together on the actual play mode, which will not pause for you. If you've missed a note, you've missed it, and it will be deducted from your accuracy score. But under the practice mode, you won't really be getting a full score, rather just for you to improve your skills here with the rhythm. Now, something you'll see on the PopuPiano is there is kind of a faint light that appears often next to the one that is brightly lit. And this actually just gives you an indication, or really a foreshadowing, that this will be the next note that is coming up. So it's the most brightly lit key that you have to tap on now, and then the one that is not quite as brightly lit is coming up next in the sequence. And for copyright reasons, I'm just going to mute the audio here, but this gives you an example of what it's like as you're playing back some of the games, again with more complex rhythm and notes that are being shown here in conjunction with the chord pad here that appears on the side. So it is a pretty fun process, and once you start getting better, you'll be able to maybe even sing along with the music. And so there we have it. That is our kind of roundup / revisited look at the PopuPiano, specifically focusing on some of the accessories that they have recently come out with. So overall, it's a pretty complete package with all of these add-ons. That being said, they can be a little bit pricey if you are getting the entire bundle. So at that point, you have to kind of evaluate, do you really value having something ultra compact? If you're always traveling with it, then it might be worthwhile, as well as if maybe you want to use it for other things, including music production, like the fact that you can purchase just the regular piano part and then add these on eventually if you are trying to expand on the functionality. So you can check out more details if you are interested, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the PopuPiano